with mine. "Tell me, Princess, what does your father think of you using magic? I thought he had forbidden it in Talador." My lips pressed into a thin line, and I didn't respond. He already knew the answer. My mother's old spellbook sat on the small stone bench behind me, where I'd been practicing before he'd arrived and disrupted me. "Oh, but of course he doesn't know," Raith continued. "That must be why you hide out here, in the shadow of the palace, with none but the forest knowing your secrets." He leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Don't worry. I won't tell either." The man standing far too close to me was a monster, by all accounts. I should have been terrified or angered by his presence here. I should have run to alert the guards or shouted for help. But I did none of those things, and found I couldn't look away from the darkly captivating man who loomed over me. I'd heard many tales of the dreaded Wizard King, my kingdom's greatest enemy, the man my father feared and hated more than anyone else in the 6 kingdoms. They said he sacrificed animals for his dark magic, that he could wipe out entire battalions of soldiers with deadly spells, and that he'd given his soul to the Shadow Lord in exchange for power. There were rumors he'd taken his throne from his mother by force, and that his wife had killed herself to escape his cruelty. I wasn't sure if any of those stories were true, but they all agreed on one thing. King Raith was a man to be feared. I should have recognized him immediately, but I'd never thought we would actually meet in person, and certainly not in the middle of the forest. In my defense, he was younger than I'd expected him to be, and far more handsome. Dark and magnetic, his presence commanded attention, and his eyes missed nothing. They were the color of a storm about to turn dangerous, filled with hidden power and ready to strike, much like the rest of him. "Why do you want to speak with my father?" I asked. "To end this war between our kingdoms. It's gone on far too long." His voice was colder than the snow under my feet, despite his words of peace. I wondered what he would ask of my father in return for ending hostilities. Talador and Illidan had been at war for decades, since long before I was born, and the cost of the endless standoff was high. When Raith became king a few years ago, it had only gotten worse. With his magic and formidable army, we were losing ground every day against Illidan, and the war was bankrupting our kingdom and forcing our people to starve. Surely my father would agree to whatever Raith wanted, knowing we couldn't continue on this path any longer, not without losing far too many lives. Then again, my father cared little for reason or empathy these days, so it was hard to know what he would do. I'd been told he was a good man before my mother passed away, but I'd never seen that side of him. And with each year, he only became colder. Would he do what was best for our kingdom? Or would his pride make him continue this never-ending war? "I'll take you to him." If I brought Raith to the castle, there might be less of a panic from his sudden, unexpected arrival. Or so I hoped. He idly waved my offer away. "No need. I'd prefer to make an entrance." "If that's so, why teleport out here in the middle of nowhere, and not closer to the castle?" "Despite your father's hatred of magic, the castle's wards still stand, and they prevent me from teleporting anywhere near it. I could break through them, of course, but why spend the energy?" He gave a casual shrug, dripping with haughty confidence. "Good evening, Princess Rose." His gaze dropped to my gown, which had begun to freeze against my legs, and heat spread through me as his eyes lingered there. An instant later, the fabric was dry and warm, as if it had been sitting under the sun for an hour. I was so startled I could only stare back at him, wondering how he'd done it. I'd heard